This is the vivo V29, the latest flagship smartphone from Vivo's V series. The V series has always been focusing on stylish designs and good camera systems, and the V29 is no exception. It not only has the Aura light system that enhances portrait shots, but also a new design that's different from the previous ones, such as the V27 or the V25. So, what new changes do we get with this year's V29? Let's take a deep dive and find out. Beginning with the design and build quality. We know that first impressions matter, and the V29 doesn't disappoint. What we have here is the peak blue color, which I honestly really like. There are three other color options, including starry purple, velvet red, and noble black, but I still like the peak blue color most. Different from the previous ones that have a color changing back, the V29 has dropped that feature, except for the velvet red color, which still has it. Instead, Vivo replaced it with what they call the innovative 3D magnetic particle technique, which basically creates these beautiful cascading gradations of light and shadows. Vivo says the pattern represents mountaintops floating amongst clouds, but I think it looks more like relaxing ripples near the beach, and you can see those subtle lighting changes when you tilt the phone. If we're choosing phones purely based on the look and design, then I would probably choose the V29 peak blue color as my daily driver. Also, the phone is 7.46 millimeters thick and weighs 186 grams, which is great for carrying it around. Apart from the color, the back isn't completely fingerprint resistant, but you can't really see it because of the bright blue color. Moving to the camera module, we see a similar design pattern to the previous V27 Pro, except that the placement of different lenses has changed. On the V27 Pro, all lenses are quite big and placed on the left side. On the V29, the bottom lens is replaced by the Aura light. Vivo probably realized that nobody uses the 2-megapixel macro lens on the V27 Pro, so Vivo removed it, but they still added a tiny black and white camera on the right side. Maybe Vivo just wants 3 lenses on the back. Nevertheless, this change actually makes the design more uniform by having 3 big circular patterns on the left and 2 smaller patterns on the right. I personally like the design of the V29 more. Now let's talk about the front display. The V29 features a 6.78-inch curved AMOLED display with a resolution of 2800 by 1260, which is around 452 pixels per inch, meaning no matter if you're scrolling through web pages or social media, text will be crystal sharp on the V29. At the same time, it is also a 10-bit display panel, so watching movies or videos will be great on this phone. As for the refresh rate, the V29 supports 120Hz refresh rate, just like other flagship phones. However, the default refresh rate is only 90Hz, and it drops to 60Hz if there's nothing happening on the screen to save battery. You have to manually select 120Hz to unlock the display's full potential. One thing that I didn't find is the screen's brightness. Even though I don't have any numbers, I can feel the screen is quite bright, so you can see your screen just fine in normal circumstances. If you plan to use it under direct sunlight, then I don't think the screen will be bright enough. One of the main selling points of the V29 is its camera system. So let's take a look at some camera specs. On the back, the V29 has a 50-megapixel main camera with optical image stabilization, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 2-megapixel monochrome camera, as well as the Aura light. On the front, we have a 50-megapixel selfie camera with autofocus. So let's see some image comparison by putting it up against the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Starting with daylight conditions. Looking at this comparison shot, we can see both phones' main camera perform equally well. When we zoom all the way in, we don't really see a huge difference in terms of sharpness between the two devices. So if you just want your daily photos to have good sharpness, then the V29's main camera isn't going to let you down. Taking a look at another comparison shot. While both phones produce equally sharp images, the colors look drastically different this time. To me, while the iPhone's photo looks sharp and natural, the V29's photo looks modified since the flowers are too bright and the overall image is too saturated. The reason is that Vivo tends to do some modifications to make the image look better. In this example, we can see that the V29 manages to raise the shadows to make the image look more balanced, while the iPhone just looks too dark. However, sometimes it doesn't work as expected. Looking at this comparison shot, while both images are sharp, the colors on the Vivo feels overdone. It all comes down to personal taste in the end. Moving to the ultra-wide camera, since the V29 only has an 8-megapixel instead of the common 12-megapixel camera that you find on the market, the ultra-wide capability isn't the V29's main focus. Beginning with this comparison, it seems like both images are very similar, except that the V29 looks brighter. However, when we zoom in, we begin to see the difference. It's apparent that the iPhone looks sharper, retaining more detailed information, while the V29 just looks kind of blurry. Other than sharpness, when we take a look at another comparison shot, we see that the V29 suffers from lens flares and chromatic aberration. When we zoom in, we can see those green and magenta fringes at the corners. While you won't see this kind of problem in every photo you take, it still makes the image less desirable to look at. Overall, during daytime conditions, the V29's main camera performs quite well. It is a great lens for capturing slices of life. Here are some photos that I took with the V29's main camera. To nighttime photography, let's see how the two phones handle low light settings. Starting with this comparison shot, similar to the results from daytime pictures, both phones' main cameras perform equally well in low-light environments. The main difference is the amount of noise in the shot. Since the V29 tends to reduce all noise in the photo, we can see the V29 has less noise in comparison to the iPhone. At the same time, Vivo also makes adjustments to nighttime shots. Looking at this comparison shot, we can see that while the iPhone looks just like the real world, Vivo adds a blue hue to the night sky. Personally, I like what the V29 has done to the image, since adding a blue hue to the night sky just enhances the mood of a nighttime photo. Also, the V29 has better highlight retention than the iPhone. Looking at this comparison, while the iPhone has some of the highlights blown out, the V29 still manages to retain that highlight information, which is awesome for night shots in a city. However, it seems like all the nighttime processing will reduce the overall sharpness of the image, which is something to keep in mind. In addition to the camera lenses, the Aura light on the V29 also plays a big role in producing good-looking images. In comparison to a traditional flashlight on the back, the Aura light is capable of producing softer lights to make the image look better. Since normal flashlights are fairly small light sources, they will create harsh shadows since the lights are fairly harsh. On the other hand, the Aura light tries to create a bigger light source to make the light softer. Here's a quick demonstration of the two light sources. We can see the Aura light is able to illuminate the subjects with softer lights, which is handy for portrait shots, since people tend to like portraits with a softer lighting. Now let's talk about performance. Inside the V29 is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 778G paired with 8 to 12 gigabytes of RAM and 128 to 512 gigabytes of ROM, which is enough for your daily activities, such as taking photos or browsing the web. Whether you like multitasking or gaming, the V29 can keep up the pace. As for intense gaming, playing Genshin Impact on the V29 is not a problem. If you want to play at 60 frames per second, then it would be a good idea to turn down some of the graphics settings. Let's move on to the battery life of the V29. The V29 packs a 4600 mAh battery inside, which can power through your entire day without a problem. If you're an intense gamer, the V29 should also last long enough for your gaming session. In my testing, I turned every graphics setting to the highest in Genshin Impact with maximum screen brightness and left the phone alone with Genshin running. The final result is that the phone dropped from 100% to 10% in 3 hours and 52 minutes, which is fairly good for such extreme circumstances. Also, even if you've used up all your battery, the V29 supports 80-watt flash charge. In my testing, the phone can go from 10% to 83% in just 24 minutes and 31 seconds, which is very handy if you're on the go. To bring it from 10% to 100% takes 38 minutes and 42 seconds. Overall, I personally really like the peak blue color, especially the pattern on the back. As for the camera system, while it doesn't have the best smartphone cameras on the market, it's still good enough to capture your daily moments. So, that's pretty much it for the V29. What do you think of the V29? Let me know in the comments down below. For tech and gadgets, we've got you covered, and see you next time.